I hope you've had a great couple of weeks since we were with you last. For those of you who are just joining us, I'm April Borkman with the Charleston Empower Program. And we also have with us our panel of experts. We have Tanel Jones, licensed marriage and family therapist, licensed addiction counselor, and Empower Health educator. If you'll wave to the camera, Tanel. I think there she is. And then we have Patrice Witherspoon, health educator for the YWCA Greater Charleston. Brittany Green will be joining us hopefully shortly, and she is the victim advocate for People Against Rape. We also have Bradley Burris, the prevention and education coordinator for People Against Rape, and Rajon Lewis, executive director of Low Country Youth Services. If you tuned in last time, or if you've been following us this week, then you know that our topic today is STIs and HIV. And Brittany, we'll skip Brittany because she's going to come in later and talk to us a little bit. But Patrice is going to talk to us a little bit about HIV first. So Patrice, what is HIV? So describe what it is and what it does to our bodies.
Yes, because you can't go anywhere without starting with the definition.
Correct.
HIV, it stands for human immunodeficiency virus, and subsequently AIDS stands for acquired deficiency syndrome. So HIV is the virus that causes you to get AIDS should it advance that far. And what that does to your body is it really kind of destroys your immune system. So AIDS will attack your T cells, which are there to help fight off other infections and diseases and whatnot, which is why someone who might have advanced to AIDS can potentially have some very severe fatal symptoms from something as simple as a cold or a flu or something like that. So people can get HIV or AIDS via unprotected sex. So anal, vaginal, oral. I think Tanel covered all of the basic definitions of sexual intercourse and different kinds. So any of those activities unprotected without a condom as a barrier, specifically latex, polyurethane, polyisoprene condoms, because there are other condoms made out of, like animals, lamb skin, things like that, but they're porous. And that means they have pores like our skin has pores. So the barrier is to protect those bodily fluids from mixing up. But a latex condom, polyurethane, polyisoprene, those, man-made materials, they protect that barrier protects you from both unintended pregnancy and STIs, HIV, AIDS, and things like that. If you are allergic, but I do encourage those three over lambskin and other kinds if you are not allergic, because they protect against,
I think the allergy part too, and correct me if I'm wrong, is really more the latex, right? So if you have a latex allergy, what you want to look for on the package is polyurethane or polyisoprene, right, Patrice?
Yeah, okay. That's why I mentioned that. Latex allergy is very common.
Yeah. Right.
The other thing, how people get it, needles, blood transfusion, essentially. So people who tend to abuse drugs use needles to inject some of those drugs. And a point that I'm about to get to in a minute, drugs can cause you to make decisions that are not so great, like sharing needles that can cause a blood transfusion that can give you a virus. And also needles, if you're just going to get pierced or tattooed or whatever it is, you need to be sure that you're going to a professional, and that they're always using sanitized and sterilized materials, because that can also be a thing. If it's less than professional and the environment is less than cleanly, then that can happen.
Right.
And then also mother to child. So if a mother has already been diagnosed with HIV/AIDS, it can sometimes be spread to her child. Before or during childbirth, very rarely through breastfeeding, and there are also treatments, especially here in the US, that can prevent that. But those are the three main ways. It's saliva. Saliva won't do it.
Right.
And I covered a lot of different little myth busters, and I wish I could have gotten a little deeper. But a couple of just things that I've heard as a health educator: saliva won't do it. Sitting on dirty toilet seats, which I would not recommend anyway, but it will not give you HIV, and things, and sharing like food or something with someone or whatever. Those things are okay. And then how we prevent it, like I mentioned. Not wearing condoms. To prevent it, you would wear a condom. Preferably one of the condoms I mentioned: latex, polyurethane, or polyisoprene. And dental dams for oral sex. I wish I could do a little demo. That's actually one of my favorites.
Can you explain what a dental dam is for those people who are watching who are like, I don't know what that is. Never heard of that before.
Like, imagine just like a little bit bigger than like an index card, but it's literally condom material. It's just a little sheet of latex or one of those other materials that you can place over your body or your partner's body before performing oral sex, so that there is a barrier again between bodily fluids. Another thing you can do is to get tested. Now, getting tested doesn't necessarily prevent you from getting it, but it helps to know your status. So as long as you know your status, like I said, that all ties into your goals and your reproductive life plan and all those things. Knowing your status helps keep you healthy. So should you have contracted HIV, then you will want to get treatment. You want to get into a treatment program. You're going to want to do the follow-up necessary things to make sure you stay healthy. You also, knowing your status, keeps you from spreading that to other people. So you're keeping yourself and your community and your sexual partners healthy by getting tested, which is a preventative measure. And then last but not least, you can also just refrain from having sex. You can be abstinent, celibate, whatever you want to call it, but you can refrain. It is a personal decision to do that or not to do that. And that is one that could protect you if you choose not to do it at all.
All right. Yeah. So we actually have an audience question too. But first, I'll give you that audience question here in a second. But Brittany is now here. So Brittany from People Against Rape, if you'll just wave to the camera. We will come back to Brittany's STI information in a second. But the question from the audience, the viewers, is can you tell if someone has HIV by just looking at them? Because I know that when we've done health education in the past, we always hear from kids, you could tell somebody looks sick, they don't look good, we know they have HIV because we can tell by looking at them. What do you say to that, Patrice?
Yeah, absolutely not. That's also one of my favorite Mythbuster activities to do with students. You can't tell if anybody has pretty much anything. So again, important to know your status and to get tested, because a lot of STIs, including HIV, can be asymptomatic for a long time. And by that point, it could have done so much damage to your body and you have no idea. And a lot of the time, I know I'm getting pretty up there. So the kids that I teach, sometimes they still don't know who Eazy-E is, but I always use Eazy-E as an example. I was just like, if you know his story, you know how quickly that process went for him, not knowing all that time that he was infected and finding out and passing away so soon after. Getting tested, knowing your status, prevents that. You, like I said, you want to get into treatment as soon as possible if you find out that you are positive. And if not, then great, continue to do what you're doing and continue to get tested, every 3 to 6 months, at least once a year if you're sexually active, preferably every 3 to 6 months though. Continue to get tested so that you're protecting yourself and your partners.
Great.
Also, I just want to say, if you can't tell if people have certain other things like corona, then you definitely cannot tell that someone has HIV/AIDS. I have psoriasis. You would think you'd be able to tell that. You cannot see it on my skin because it's inverted. Just saying.
Way to bring it into the current situation, Patrice, with the coronavirus. That's a good point. If you can't tell if somebody has coronavirus, you can't tell if they have HIV. All right, so we're going to move over back to Brittany. Are you ready to go, Brittany? We want you to tell us about the difference let's start with the difference between what STI and STD.
Okay. So the difference between STI and STD is that the STI is the actual infection itself, and the STD is essentially when it progresses to become the disease itself. So a lot of medical professionals, and I know us in the community, we use them interchangeably. There's been a lot of stigma attached to STD, and a lot of medical professionals are just seeing that STI just has a little bit less stigma as far as, this aspect of you only get an STD if you're a bad person type of thing. And we're trying to move away from that because getting infected it puts no meaning on your worth as a person.
Right.
Yeah.
So we want you guys, if you're watching, to be able to prevent yourself from getting an STI or an STD, because it can have some health consequences and it could have some mental health consequences as well for folks. But we also want you to know that if you do contract an STI or an STD, it's not the end of the world, right? And a lot of them can be, and which Brittany will get into, but a lot of them can be treated. Some of them can be cured. So, don't let that define you if that happens. So tell us a little bit. Patrice covered it for HIV, because a lot of the same ways that you can get HIV, you can get an STI. But tell us the ways that a person can contract an STI and the difference between oral, anal, and vaginal sex.
Okay. So the different ways that you can contract an STI are through oral, anal, vaginal sex, or intimate skin-to-skin contact. So for oral sex, Patrice just touched on that. We're talking about the dental dams. It's where you are putting your mouth on someone else's genitals. Anal sex is when there is penetration into your anus. Vaginal sex is penetration into the vagina. Any intimate skin-to-skin contact is what it sounds like. It's when you're really close to somebody and you're in a position where you can, kind of receive any kind of bodily fluids or whatever, something like that.
So genital to genitals touching, hand touching genitals, same.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. And so what are some symptoms for someone to look out for if they're concerned they contracted an STI?
So there are some symptoms with burning, when you urinate, bumps, blisters, sores, any pain or swelling in the genital area, any discharge, unusual smelling, discharge, for those that have a vagina. And the big thing is that a lot of them don't have any symptoms, any visible symptoms. So you could walk around here and you could have some type of STI or STD for months or years and not know it. And that's why it's really important to make sure that you're getting tested regularly if you're having sex with other people.
Great. Thank you. Mm-hmm. All right. So we've now, one more question for you. Can you tell us about what monogamy is and why that's important, or maybe important?
Yeah. So monogamy is this concept and idea that a relationship is between two people. So one person and another person. And with monogamy, there are some protective factors as far as with STDs and STIs. If you're both getting tested regularly and have an idea of what your status is, then you are able to have that open flow of communication when it comes to sex, because this person's been tested. I know what they have or what they don't have. They know what I have, what I don't have. And so that creates just a little bit of a protective barrier for you when it comes to STIs and STDs. Not to say that monogamy is the only way to go, because it's not. There are people that do have multiple sexual partners, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's just about safety. So if you are having sex with multiple partners, making sure that you are keeping up to date with your testing, that they are keeping up to date with their testing, and knowing that there's this open communication between all people, all partners in the relationship or in the situationship.
Right. Very good. Thank you. Okay. So now we're going to move over to you here. I'm going to make sure that everybody can see your lovely face front and center. So hold on one second for those watching. There she is. I want you to talk to us a little bit about what are some reasons people might want to prevent getting an STI or HIV. We talked a little bit, we kind of briefly touched on it, but if you could give us some more information.
Yes. Okay. So one of the reasons would probably be the long-term effects. I don't know if it may, infertility could be a reason if you plan to have children in the future. That could be a reason. I also mentioned in my trivia about HPV causing genital warts, also those leading to possible throat cancer, cervical cancer, vaginal cancer, and I think it's anal cancer. So just the long-term impact of certain certain STIs. Emotionally, I think is another reason, and mental health impacts overall. We are unfortunately a very shame-based society. So even though we say over and over, if you don't have it, if you got an STI, it's okay. It can still be very difficult. I know people enter in relationships and they may have some of the viral infections such as HPV, hepatitis B, and herpes, and those viruses don't ever leave the body. And so it may make you not want to be open to your partner. So then you may assume, well, I can't have a healthy relationship. Nobody's going to want to be with me with this. And so you may choose to be with people who, aren't healthy. And so that can be a barrier as well. So that's just something I would like to point out. So that's why you may want to avoid do what you can to stay protected.
Great. Also, can you talk to us? You're a drug and alcohol counselor, therapist. So can you talk to us a little bit about the dangers of using drugs and alcohol before you engage in sexual activity?
Well, it's really simple. Obviously, it's interesting because a lot of young people tell me, oh, like, for instance, marijuana doesn't do anything. And some often say, well, why would you take something that doesn't do anything? Clearly, it's doing something because you're choosing to take it. So just be mindful that if you're doing it to alter your mood, altering your mood may also alter your thinking patterns, which then may also alter your decision making. So that's just the most important thing. Just recognize they're called mood altering substances for a reason. And if they weren't doing anything, you probably wouldn't be taking it anyway. So, and that's just the important thing. It just makes it harder for you to think clearer and choose the road that's best for you, that's going to lead to those goals that you have planned. Okay?
Yes, thank you for bringing that back around to our very first live panel discussion when we talked about future planning. All right, so I think what would be really fun is that we play as a panel of experts. We play this game with our youth when we're actually in front of them. But I think it would be kind of fun to play, there you go, Tanal, an agree or disagree game. And so I'm going to read a statement out to all of you, and you're going to tell me whether you agree or you disagree. And then we'll have a little discussion about each statement, okay? So if you're at home watching, play along. I don't want to say there's no right or wrong answer, but we respect everyone's opinions in this game, right? So the first statement, are you guys ready? Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's see. The first one I'm going to throw out to you guys. Here's a good one. Agree or disagree. It is hard to convince a sexual partner to use a condom. Would you agree? Hold up your agree or disagree sign. So Tanel disagrees. Bradley agrees. Brittany agrees. Patrice, I don't know if you're playing because it looks like you might be frozen. Rajan, you disagree.
I was supposed to make one of those.
Just tell us, do you agree or disagree? It's hard to convince a sexual partner to use a condom.
I'll just use my phone.
Oh, yeah, that's good. Our viewers agree. One of our viewers so far agrees. Disagree? Okay. So
Yeah.
so tell me who disagrees. Hold up your poster if you disagreed. All right, we got a couple over there. All right. So I'm going to agree that it is very difficult to convince a partner because especially if you're not prepared to have that conversation with a partner, which is another reason why it's important that you're having these conversations with sex partners in advance, right? So I do think it's difficult, and I think it can be really awkward and uncomfortable. But for those of you who disagreed, tell me why you disagree.
I'll go first. I disagree because I think it's important when you think about why most people would probably say it's hard is because of the myth that condoms don't feel good when you are, or maybe even dental dams, it doesn't feel like the real thing when you are having sex and then you don't get the same pleasure. Not to kind of be crude, but it kind of goes back to the first thing I always tell teens about appreciating and learning your body and knowing what feels good to you, then you can definitely help other people. So it doesn't matter, I don't think that makes a difference. I think if you know what you want for yourself, you can tell. It's like if you go to a store or you go to a restaurant and your order is wrong, you are able to kind of get that resolved or tell people what you want. You can tell people what you want in terms of what you choose to do in your bed.
More importantly so than what you're actually eating in a restaurant, right? So if you can say that, then you should be able to say, this is what I want between us. Yeah. All right,
I love Rajan's perspective as a male and how women can.
So if the thing I remember is that you have to be sure about the things that you want out of life. You have to consider the things that you want in the future. I disagree that it's hard to convince your partner if you are sure of yourself and who you are and what your goals are long term. If you're not in that situation, you're not as sure about your goals and your values and willing to stand firm in that, it can be difficult. But for those of you who are out there who do understand, that there's certain things that you want to do in your future, it would be much easier for you to be able to talk them through it. Also, if you have the verbiage to be able to express why it's important to you, I think that's also important as well, because then you'll understand that if people respect you, they'll respect your values, they'll respect your morals, they'll respect the things that you stand for. So you are agreeing to have sexual intercourse with them, but you want to make sure that you're not engaging in risky behaviors, like having sex without any kind of prophylactic.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to another one. So get your agree and your disagree, or your thumbs up or your thumbs down, Patrice, ready to go. Let's see. Agree or disagree. Here's a good one. You guys ready? Agree or disagree. Sex can feel good if you use condoms. Tanel says agree. Bradley agrees. Brittany agrees. Everybody agree? Oh, we have one disagree. All right, man, the lone male panelist. Tell us why you disagree.
I want to start off by saying that I'm playing devil's advocate.
Okay.
So I'm going to start out because I don't want it to be, hey, the guy from Low Country Youth Services is telling kids.
Yeah. It's for the purpose of discussion. We got it. Yeah.
Right. So that is something, that will be thrown out there. Condoms don't, when you wear a condom, it doesn't feel like the real thing. So I don't want to wear it because this don't feel good. This doesn't feel right. And that's something that will be thrown out there to my young ladies. If you believe that, it's not true. Tanil will definitely tell you. She does a great job of explaining, the different ways to make sure that you can still have a pleasurable intercourse experience, whether it be intercourse or whether it be oral or anal sex. You can still have a pleasurable experience using different types of tools and getting to know your body and yourself well. But there are guys who will tell you, hey, this doesn't feel right. I can't put this on. If I put this on, it won't feel like the real thing. I need the real thing. Well, it's actually the real thing, believe it or not. It does not get any realer than what you're already doing. So I just want to throw that out there. So I was playing devil's advocate with my sign.
Thank you.
In actuality, agree.
Thank you for playing along. We appreciate you.
I would like to add as well, if you're faced with the argument that it doesn't feel right, it's kind of like I'm gonna do shoes because I love shoes. Well, try on different kinds. We have all different ones that might feel the best for you. I have some here, the basic, whatever. You have colorful ones, flavorful ones, whatever it is. Don't just allow somebody to say it doesn't feel right. Well, we're going to try each one until it feels comfortable. They have extra thin, barely there, whatever, thicker there. I don't know, but just make sure you try them all.
Thank you for coming to the conversation prepared, Tanel. That's what you're supposed to do. You're our health educator. So I appreciate that. All right, we're going to do one more for the sake of time. Agree or disagree. If you know your sexual partner very well, you shouldn't have to use a condom. This one's kind of hard. If you know your sexual partner very well, you shouldn't have to use a condom. So Tanel agrees. Let's see if I can get everybody else's up here. Okay, Brittany agrees. Bradley disagrees. Patrice disagrees. Rajan disagrees. Okay, so who agreed? Tanel, you gotta pick one.
Well, it's not wide. Because if you know your partner very well, you might still need to use a condom or protection. If you know your partner very well, you might not need to use any protective barrier.
No, you're right.
Touché.
No, I think this goes back to what we were talking about. Like if you're getting tested and you are getting tested, you know your status and you know that your partner is not sleeping with somebody else and you're not sleeping with somebody else, then, and you're not worried about pregnancy, because we're going to talk about pregnancy at another point. That's still a risk, right? If you know your status and you know you guys are being monogamous, then maybe you don't necessarily need to use a condom to prevent STIs or STDs. But you're still at risk for an unplanned pregnancy, right? And the other part of it is, are you absolutely 100% without a doubt sure that your partner is not sleeping with somebody else, right? So these are things that you need to know and discussions that you need to have with a partner. A couple of questions from our viewer. Well, one question from our viewers: do married individuals need to wear condoms? That's a good question. Who's our married folks on the panel who want to answer that question? Rajan?
Not I.
Yeah, so I think that depends on your situation. I think it depends on your situation. There are certainly certain married people who do use condoms, on a regular basis because they're trying to prevent pregnancy, or maybe they don't really trust the person they're married to that a lot. Just being honest. Back to what Tanel said earlier. If you know the person that you're with is being sexually active outside of, maybe you're in a polyamorous relationship or some kind of polygamous marriage, and you say, hey, I don't know what else you're out here doing in these streets, and I want to make sure I'm protecting myself, you do that. Now, that's something that you have to decide within the confines of your marriage. Just like anything else, you want to make sure that you're talking about the things that are important to you and are important to your marriage. If in your marriage you've decided we're going to wait a while before we have a child, then you're probably going to use birth control and probably use condoms to make sure, because we know that when you combine the two birth control methods, you have a higher percentage of an opportunity to prevent pregnancy. So if that's something that they're doing, but then they would probably do that. But there's also a large segment of married people who do not use condoms. But I would say don't go by what the majority says. I'd go based on what it is that you want and what the things are that you want out of life.
There are STIs that don't leave the body. So if you do, if you are married and one person has herpes or hepatitis B or HIV, then you may want to use a protective barrier for any type of intercourse. So I just wanted to point that out.
True.
Yeah, and actually that's a good point. I don't think we covered that, but there are some STIs and that can be cured and some that can just be treated. Tanel, can you give us a quick rundown on, or Brittany, whichever one wants to do it, on which ones can be cured and which ones cannot be cured but can be treated?
Yeah, I think we talked about it a little bit earlier. So the bacterial infections, which are syphilis, gonorrhea, chlamydia, and the Parasitical infections, which is trichomoniasis, scabies, and pubic lice. All of those cannot. All of those can be cured with medication, and they leave your body. All of the STIs that start with the letter H, they stay in your body, but they can be treated with medication and healthy lifestyle. So, and those again are the HPV, also human papillomavirus, hepatitis, and it's actually hepatitis. We get into that hepatitis A, B, C, but hepatitis B is one we're talking about today, and HIV and herpes.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. And we did have one more question from the viewers that I wanted to ask, and we kind of alluded to this just a minute ago, but will birth control, which we haven't talked about yet and we'll be talking about next time, birth control, will it also protect you from STIs or HIV?
No.
Certain. You mean birth control pills?
Any kind of birth control pills, patches, hormones.
Oh, no.
Right. Okay, good. Just wanted to make sure that we got that out there. So birth control, aside from condoms, which is a type of birth control, but it's...
Right, that's what I was...
Yeah, birth control pills, the patch, the shot, the ring, the IUDs... Or, I'm sorry, IUD will protect you against... No, IUD will not. Sorry, got twisted there for a second. But any of those are not going to protect you from STIs. Only condoms or abstinence will protect you from STIs. So just wanted to make sure we got that information out there for our viewers. Did we lose Bradley? Nope, she's back. I see.
No, she's still here.
Okay. Sorry, I thought we lost you for a second because we want to jump over to Bradley because we have some really important information to talk about. We've had some fun on this in this discussion, playing myths and facts, but we do need to get to something a little bit more serious. And there is a video that we are going to be posting later that talks about this as well. But I do want to talk about something really important. So Bradley, can you talk to us a little bit about, you work for People Against Rape, so can you tell us about sexual assault? So what is sexual assault? How does it relate to our discussion on STIs and HIV?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just kind of want to go ahead and start by saying that this can be a very uncomfortable topic for people who might be watching or viewing later. So if you need to not listen to this, or you need to step away or take your time, there's always other ways to get the other information, but we definitely want to make sure that you're taking care of you and what you need right now. That being said, sexual assault is any type of sexual contact that happens without consent. So this could be penetration of a victim's body, attempted assault, unwanted sexual touching, or like forced sexual contact. So this relates back to HIV and STIs because when someone experiences sexual assault, there is a chance of getting infections and diseases transmitted. So we always want to encourage survivors to take any prophylaxis that they may need to reduce the likelihood of contracting any of these infections or diseases. It's a really important option for survivors because it's likely that they might have experienced something very traumatic, and having the control over their reproductive health is something that may be really important to their healing process.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really, and so how can someone who has experienced a sexual assault, like what would you tell them to do in order to make sure that they get treatment and get checked and get a test and all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are over the age of 18, I would encourage you to reach out probably to your local rape crisis center or to a national one, connect with those local resources. And if it's within 120 hours or 5 days, you can go to MUSC to receive an exam, which is called a sexual assault forensic exam, where you will meet trained forensic nurses that will go through the process of evidence collection and medication, which is really one of the most important parts to me, where you can receive many things from mild pain reliever to Plan B, and get those resources that you may need later down the line, like potential checkups throughout the process at certain months, which could help with if there's a potential likelihood for HIV.
Great. So part of obviously this discussion relates to consent. And so for any viewers who are watching who don't know what consent means, can you give us a description of what consent looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So consent is an agreement between any participants that are considering engaging in sexual activity. And there's an acronym that's really helpful if you're a little unsure or you're trying to remember, okay, what is consent? So you can use the acronym FRIES. It's freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, and specific. And if you ever are unsure, you can always look up consent acronyms, and there's always a few, and they're pretty on point.
Yeah, I like that FRIES because it's pretty simple and understandable. So again, it's freely given, it's reversible, which means that if you decide, yes, I consent to having sex, you can change your mind at any point.
Absolutely.
So FR. I is informed, correct?
Yep.
Which means you understand what you are consenting to, which means if you're under the influence of drugs or alcohol, you may not be informed, and so you may not be giving informed consent. And then enthusiastic, like, yes, I give my consent. This is what I want to do. And if you're not sure your partner's excited about it, you should ask and make sure. And then S was specific, right? I am specifically giving consent for you and I to do this particular thing. Nothing else, just this particular thing. So thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
So can you tell us a little bit about the resources that people can get from People Against Rape if they've been sexually assaulted?
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, so our services are free and confidential. We serve adults that are located within the Dorchester, Berkeley, and Charleston County. If you're outside of those areas and you don't necessarily meet our eligibility, you can always call and we can connect you with the appropriate resources. So we have support groups, which is really helpful if you're looking for peer support about other people who may be going through the same or similar healing process. We also do trauma-informed referrals, which means that if you're maybe thinking about going to an OBGYN appointment and you're a little worried because it might be the first time since the assault occurred, we can help look for other resources in the community that are going to be very trauma-informed. That means aware of that this might be a difficult situation for you. And then one of our most well-known ones, I would say, is our 24-hour hotline where you can speak to trained advocates about crisis intervention, about questions about consent, sexual assault, how to support loved ones who might be impacted by sexual assault. We serve everybody who might have been impacted by sexual violence. And that hotline number is going to be 843-745-0144.
Thank you. And we actually have a question from our viewers. Do you serve individuals under the age of 18? And if not, what do these individuals do?
So we do not serve individuals under the age of 18. What I would recommend is if you are a minor who has experienced sexual assault, I would find a trusted adult, whether that be family or just someone in your life that you consider to be someone that is trustworthy. Disclose to them in the best way that you feel you can, and then reach out to your community resources. So that could be children's advocacy centers, it could be national networks. But no matter what happens, just know that we do believe you and that people will be there for you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. I think we are, unless some other folks on the panel have anything else to add to that. I think we're going to go ahead. We're already at about a little over a half an hour mark, so we're going to go ahead and wrap everything up for this particular discussion. So in closing, we want to thank all of our panelists again. Thank you very much for being here. This was a great discussion. And to let our viewers know to keep checking back on our social media sites, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, and see more educational videos in the future. And I think we're going to do another live panel, not next week, but the week after. And I think we're going to be getting into some information about contraceptives. Yeah.
I think she got frozen. Oh, there she goes.
Yeah. I'm still here. So anyway, if in case you missed that last part that I said, where the next panel discussion will be 2 weeks from now, and we're going to be talking about contraception methods. So thank you for everybody for watching and participating, and we hope to see you all soon. And remember to DM us if you have questions or topics that you want us to discuss, because we are always happy to pull all of that information in. All right. Have a great week. Happy Memorial Day, and we'll see you soon.